Aloha kako. I am the Botany Program Manager for Palama East Conservation Department. This presentation is co-authored by Hank Oppenheimer, the Maui Nui PEP Coordinator, who we work closely with on rare plant work, and Pili Gela, who's the Field Crew Manager for Palama's Conservation Department. The Botany Program, similar to the Conservation Department at Palama as a whole, focuses on three main project areas. Specifically for the Botany Program, we protect the native plant species with an emphasis on the threatened and endangered taxa, which I will often abbreviate with the acronym TNE. We also do a significant amount of weed control and rare plant and snail exclosures for general watershed protection and to eradicate incipient invasive weed species on island. Additionally, Biosecurity falls under the umbrella of the Botany Program. This program focuses on the prevention of new, unwanted introductions to Lanai, for example, the introduction of coconut rhinoceros beetle. The following presentation will go through each of these main project areas in more detail. Lanai is currently home to 21 federally endangered plant species. To address the gravity of this situation, it's important to break down this list into smaller groups. 7 of these species are endemic to Lanai only. As you can see, 6 out of those 7 taxa being PEP species, with less than 50 wild individuals, some significantly less than that. 2 of the species, Cyania monroei and Melicote monroei, are only known at this time to be on Lanai as they've been extirpated from historical locations on other islands. Lastly, 3 of these TNE species no longer have wild individuals on island. They only exist currently through outplanting efforts. As you are probably aware, the threats that target native plant species on Lanai, as you're probably aware, the threats that target native plants on other Hawaiian islands are similar threats that we are trying to manage on Lanai. The big 4 that I would say are ungulates, drought, and potential changes in periodicity as a result of climate change, invasive plants, and rodents, in particular rats. One of the ways that we manage the threat of ungulates to rare plant species is via fencing. There are 9 exclosures on island that protect rare plant populations. Those are highlighted by the red dots on the map. These exclosures are ungulate proof and ungulate free. They range in size from a ½ acre to about 20 acres. There are also 2 pakahuli, or predator-proof snail exclosures, visible as the blue dots on the map that protect endangered tree snails. David Sisko will be speaking shortly about these Lanai tree snails, but we do also actively manage these units. We've actually just started outplanting the Lanai halapepe in one of these exclosures and are looking into the possibility of planting additional rare taxa in these smaller predator-proof units. There are also 2 larger fenced units on the island known as Increment 1 and Increment 2. The larger Increment 1 fence, outlined in yellow, is about 1,800 acres in size. The smaller Increment 2 fence, outlined in purple, is just over 400 acres. These were built mainly for the protection of our watershed. Although they are not ungulate free, ungulates are periodically controlled in these units, and they are in a sense ungulate proof as a result of quarterly fence checks and repairs conducted by Pili and his field crew. When we look at the fenced units as a whole, they encompass just over 2,000 acres, or about 2.5% of Lanai's area, but only 45 acres are ungulate free. Some fencing highlights for this year include improvements made to the 6-acre Koa Forest exclosure located just outside of Lanai City. It's now ungulate proof and ungulate free, and we were able to start planting Gardenia brighamii, the native na'u, in the unit recently. Additionally, the field crew completed construction of a 2-acre exclosure located at Pu'u Mahanalua, also known as Twin Peaks. The unit protects a remnant of Butylan menziesii population. Lanai is home to several hundred wild Butylan menziesii, known in Hawaiian as ko'ola'ula, which is most likely the highest number of ko'ola'ula on any Hawaiian island. The field crew also replaced hundreds of feet of fence line at the Puhiaulu exclosure up on the mountain. This roughly 9-acre exclosure protects 2 endangered species that are found in this unit and nowhere else in the world. Those species being Cyania monroei and Labordia tenuifolia variety linnaeensis. One more fencing project for this year is that we flew in materials to fence what ended up being 5 wild Gardenia brighamii located in privately managed hunting areas on the windward side of the island. The small fences around the mature trees will assist with the protection of individuals from rockfall and ungulate trampling, rubbing, and browsing, among other things. When Hank and I were hiking in to fence one of these gardenia trees, we ended up finding a new, undocumented female gardenia tree, and that ended up being the 5th tree that we fenced this year. I also installed a few rat traps in the area by this newly documented female tree, and I'm looking forward to collecting seeds from this individual in the next few weeks. As I mentioned earlier, we actively manage the weeds and outplant natives at the 9 rare plant exclosures on island, as well as the 2 pakahuli. Since 2018, we've continually increased the number of non-TNE, as noted in the blue bars, and TNE plants noted in the red bars on this figure each year. We are on pace to outplant over 100 plants this year. One very exciting step to increase outplanting efforts at the Puhialu exclosure was the addition of a small water catchment system seen in the lower left-hand side of the slide, which means that we can hike down more plants in lieu of water for each planting event. We grow most of the plants used in outplanting events on island at a 2,000 square foot shade house located by the quarantine unit across from the cat sanctuary. We have had over 50 native plant species housed at this location, again, most propagated on site. We also receive plants from Lion Arboretum on Oahu and a Linda Rare Plant Facility in Maui. In the past couple of years, we have expanded the nursery to include an outdoor growing area just adjacent to the shade house. This area works well for sun-loving plants such as the ko'olaula or Butylon menziesii, and for hardening off plants prior to outplanting. Moving away from native plants, the botany program is currently working towards the eradication of 4 incipient weed species on island, these being ivy gourd, which is located in and around the Four Seasons Manelli Resort, fountain grass, known from 2 locations in the Cooperative Game Management Area, also known as the CGMA, Parthenium hysterophorus, a weedy aster that's found near the stables area on the outskirts of town. And recently, we just started controlling cat's claw that's found in a gulch on the south side of town. I think we are winning the battle with Parthenium and ivy gourd. We've found very few Parthenium plants in the past couple of months. Unfortunately, the seeds of both of these species, as well as fountain grass, can remain viable in the soil for 6 years. So we're really excited that we haven't found any seeding Parthenium and ivy gourd in quite some time. Fountain grass control has been a little bit trickier, especially in one of the locations where the landscape is composed of about a dozen different grass species. We've shortened the interval between surveys, and by doing so, haven't found a seeding plant in several months. During really dry months, I've seen ungulate browsing on some of the smaller fountain grass individuals. So instead of trying to find a needle in a haystack, I feel like I'm often trying to find a half a needle in a haystack, which is added to the challenges of eradicating the species. Moving away from weeds, we try as best as possible to minimize the introduction of unwanted non-native pests. All plant and soil shipments coming from off-island for Palama and Four Seasons landscaping operations are quarantined for up to 2 weeks, sometimes longer, and inspected for various pests such as coqui frogs and little fire ant, as well as lesser-known pests such as hollow scale. We also encourage and have had folks in the community utilize our quarantine facilities and services. The majority of the biosecurity operations are carried out by Palama's biosecurity technician, Jerome Sunio. All of the biosecurity efforts that are taken on island require lots of coordination between different entities, different departments, and different organizations across the state. For example, in 2019, there was an infestation of hollow scale discovered on the Four Seasons grounds. Four Seasons acted quickly on the infestation and worked with HDOA and other state entities, as well as Palama Lanai, to eradicate the species from the site, and so far there's been no signs of this species return. I really like to highlight that our shipment inspections include screening for animal pests and weeds. This photo was taken at the base of a traveler's palm that came in one of the shipments. It had an opiuma stump that we ended up treating with herbicide and then removing from the main plant, as well as an ivy gourd seedling that did not come from Lāna. Opiuma, if you're not familiar with it, is a really nasty thorny legume species, and it's not known from Lāna, which we're hoping remains the case into the future. We also do routine monitoring for pests that have not been detected and are established on island. We maintain 9 coconut rhinoceros beetle traps and over a dozen saw meters to assist with coqui frog detections. It takes a community to protect our natural resources, and I just wanted to give a big shout out to our Palama Lanai and our Lanai and our Greater Hawaii community that have volunteered and gone out of their way to protect Lanai's natural resources, especially in regards to our native plants. For example, folks have reported to us dead ohia trees that we will need to sample for rod, for example, participating in outplanting events, hunters who impact the ungulate populations, and one of my favorites is the landscapers at Four Seasons who will pull ivy gourd seedlings in between our routine weed surveys on the property. And the list goes on, but we really just appreciate everybody who supports our conservation programs as a whole. And lastly, a big mahalo to the conservation staff at Palama and others at Palama, as well as to all of the organizations, companies across the state that support the botany program. Thank you for all of your assistance, for your work with us on Lanai. With that, I conclude the presentation and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.